Walk with me through the cellar door. A storm is coming, Francis. A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh, welcome to another Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We have an amazing episode planned for you all. We decided to take a little bit of a break from politics, tonight, because we spent a lot of time talking about politics. There's a lot going on. I will admit, in the last 3-4 days, I had to go change my vote. I had to do absentee vote because I travel to Texas, and I'm going to Texas next week, so I can't vote in the Michigan primary.
Ooh.
But I had to go down and change my vote because I originally had scheduled myself to vote for Elizabeth Warren. And of course, as we all heard on Thursday, she dropped out of the race.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, there actually is a policy that says if you do an absentee vote and your candidate drops out, you're able to go down and change your vote. It was a 10-minute process for me. Couldn't believe it. It was like the most amazing thing I've ever done. I just couldn't believe it was that simple to do. I thought this was going to be a nightmare. I took a half a day off work to do it, and it took 10 minutes.
Well,
shows you, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just a good thing that it's like that. Like we've been seeing in certain states that it's been getting more and more difficult to get your vote in all reality. And here's a case where it's actually functioning properly. I will say Michigan is not the best when it comes to a lot of their services because they're not as interconnected on the internet. Their tax system is all paper. Not a fan. But their voting stuff, it seems to be. I have a few people in my family that have used absentee ballots this year. I never got to use them, because it was so hard to get, and I was just at work, so they were like, "You have no excuse. You have to actually go vote." And so, in the end, though, it seems like Michigan's got a pretty good voting system, so it doesn't seem like it's too discriminatory. I mean, there always are little tiny little things here and there that would make it, like it's kind of making it harder for certain groups of people to vote.
And I think that happens. I mean, I know it happened in Texas. I heard I have some employees at work that were telling me about that. So I won't say
Did
that,
you hear about the thumb drive thing?
No, I've not heard about that. What's that?
There's a county in Texas that found 40 thumb drives with all their voting information on them or something like that. Like they're asking for a recount. Like this information either shouldn't have been out or it wasn't where it should have been. Something's up, and it's an entire county worth of people. And they said that there's a lot of skepticism or, how it typically is when your actual turnout and what your results are versus exit polls and versus how things were polling ahead of time is when your county turns out to be way different. There's an example in the Bush Gore election in Ohio that Christopher Hitchens narrated a really cool thing in his book. I think it was Arguably, that is an article that he wrote about it. And it was just like, yeah, when things are weird, they need to be investigated. So like, there's some weird stuff going around here and there. Hopefully Texas gets it ironed out.
It's Texas though. So I don't know if that should inspire hope or not.
I don't know. I hope so. I've been told that I've been hearing that Texas has got a nice purple tinge to it now. Then it used to be a pretty strong Democratic stronghold, and then that was one thing they said that a long time ago. I can't remember how long ago they said it was a decent Democratic stronghold, and then it switched over to Republican hard, and now we're finally starting to see movement back. I'll see if I can figure out what that timeline was when Texas used to be a little more liberal.
Huh. Yay. Well, I mean, I guess my blue province was orange for a little bit there, so there's that.
Yeah,
Fair
it
enough.
says Democratic dominance from 1848 until Dwight
Oh.
Eisenhower's victory in 1952. Texas voted for the Democratic candidate for president in every election except 1928. So Texas used to be a Democratic stronghold. We talked about this in the past about the swap between the philosophical, ideological perspectives between the Democrats and Republicans. We saw a swing and a change, and it had a lot to do with infrastructure being built and stuff like that. But what we used to consider like Democrats is now what we would consider Republicans. So, like, if you look at the slave votes and everything, Democrats voted against the Emancipation Proclamations and all those kinds of things because at the time the Democratic Party was considered South and the Republican Party was considered liberal. And so, like, those things have changed over time. I could try to find the segment that we did a long time ago, but it was on, I believe it was on livescience.com. They talked about the how and what drove that change to flip flop, but they are basically the opposites of what they used to be, which is kind of why Texas registered as Democratic, even though at the time the Democrats were the conservatives.
Yeah, and the Republicans were the liberals and the loony lefties.
And the Whigs were the stingy super Ubers.
Ooh.
Jeez. Anyway, so Elizabeth Warren dropped out. I'm sad. I kind of wish that hadn't happened, but it is what it is. You know, everybody gets to go out. If you're listening to this and live in Michigan, please go out and vote in the primary.
You know what the turnout was on Super Tuesday?
I don't.
For young people, 17%.
Not very good,
man.
especially in Bernie's favor, right?
Like all of these people all over the internet, all of these like spamming, super liberal on their computers, memeing the heck out of everything. I don't know where they were on voting day. That's one of the things you can guarantee that the older folks, the Trump supporters, everybody I work with, they're all going to be voting. Every one of them. And I am not going to be able to represent all of the people that need to be voting in the area. It's just plain and simple.
Well, and I think the sad thing here, right, Hannah, is that everybody's made a big stink and people keep saying vote blue no matter who. And then other people are like, well, no, it's going to be Bernie or bust. And we sit here and have these conversations all the time. But if you're not willing to go out and vote, I don't know what else to say. And I'll take a stance on the show because that's kind of me. I've done this before more than one time. So I'll take it a little bit of a soapbox. I'll be honest, this time it's very hard for me, especially watching what's happening, to not want to walk out of this primary. It's very hard for me to say, I'm going to go vote for Biden, right? But at the exact same time, I do recognize my privilege. I recognize where I'm at. I understand, me as an individual. But my big thing here is how do we change, and have, like a revolution, right? Because if we don't, where are we going to be at, right? I mean, where are we going to be at if we do not have a revolution of some sorts? And how do we get there? And I think that's the big thing. People ask that question all the time. How do we get to having a revolution?
All I know is that now that I don't have to even consider having to vote for Bloomberg in the general, I literally, if Bloomberg would have been the guy, if it would have been Trump versus Bloomberg, I would have voted for Bloomberg, and then I never would have voted for Democrats ever again. That was it for me. If it would have been him somehow through some crazy thing, that would have been it. I would have never voted again in the Democratic Party. I wouldn't have voted Republican. I would just vote third party or something else. But that would have been too much for me to handle. I would dedicate the rest of my life to a third party.
Yep. And
wait, did Bloomberg drop?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. And supported Biden. So he essentially spent was it $500,000?
$500 million.
$500 million on running late in the game and then drop. And the funny thing is, how many homeless people could he have helped, with that?
And so, I mean, and the big thing that gets me is that he spent some $500, $600, $700 million on this, and it's not going to really hurt him that much. I mean, he's still got, I think he had 60 billion, I think it was, or something like that. So like less than 1/60th of his net worth went into it. He'll make it up. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, someone could spend that much money on that. I can't remember what. I think it was MSNBC. There was something that was really stupid, and they were saying that he spent 500 million plus, and that he could have given It's unbelievable, this math. He could have given everyone in the United States $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you see that? But
yeah, and that's wrong, though. You know that's wrong.
Yeah,
though.
I know.
The math is wrong.
Like that. This is the media. These are like the people in charge of making the news.
They don't understand how math works.
I couldn't believe how bad they got that math. So
it was so bad. And it was funny because the conservative people on my page are pointing this out. It's like, you're right. The mainstream media fucked this one up. I don't know what to say. I'm really sorry. Like, this is idiocy upon idiocy, you know? Like, I don't even understand it. You know, and my big thing here is, right, my response to the whole thing is, I don't believe not voting is going to fix it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at it this way. I'm the guy that was Bernie 2 times now. Technically, I was Warren first. When she conceded, I became Bernie again, right? But what I suggest is, look how Bernie runs. He's running on a Democratic ticket. Right? We've had this conversation. He's done this twice now. He's using the Democratic ticket to run as a progressive disguised as a Democrat. The problem is that Bernie is not only using the existing system to get elected, right? He's also trusting people will start to work together for the sake of humanity. And I'm confident, right? I'm confident that Bernie will have a strong showing to some extent, right? But we can't ignore the fact that he chose to run as a Democrat and not as an independent. Now, if he had run it as an independent, I would understand voting for him. I would happily not vote Democrat to some extent for him, right? Especially now that Warren's out.
The way it basically works out is that he simply cannot not run in the Democratic Party. Like, it's not possible to run as a third party. The last person that came anywhere near any kind of actual legitimacy was Ross Perot. And I mean, he was only at like 10, 15% max. I mean, he was not big enough to even be viable. I don't believe he won a single electoral vote. So
yeah, that doesn't look, dude.
That's what I mean.
Hold on.
Like, it just sucks. That's the infrastructure that we have built.
I get that, though.
Yeah,
I 100% get that. But that's my point, though. You're proving my point, because the point becomes is he didn't run as an independent. He ran as a Democrat because he believes that's the only way to change the system from the inside out.
Yeah, the ending of SLC Punk.
Yeah, and I understand to some extent, right? We're gonna get we have a probability we're gonna get stuck with, as South Park would call it, what a turd sandwich, you know. And I get it, right? And I wish I could pull up that image for everybody, just because that's like one of the best. That's one of the best when John Kerry was running against Bush. That's one of the best episodes.
Yeah.
But how can we sit by and do nothing, you know, and hurt the establishment? It's not going to happen. For those who never run Democrat before, no one is saying that you should now vote Democrat. Humanity is saying that you deserve to vote against Trump. That's what we're saying. This is no longer. I get there's this split, and I'm saying is the Green Party sucks to some extent. There's a lot of woohoo. There's a lot of issues in the Green Party. Bernie chose a specific platform, and the deal becomes here is we don't get a choice at some extent. Okay, we do get a choice, but we should not take this choice and make this big serious endeavor to go, we're going to just sit this out. Because tell me where the fuck you've gotten before. Tell me where the fuck you've gotten before by sitting out on voting. Tell me how sitting out and voting has helped. Now, I'll tell you what, if you want to sit out and vote, and then the next week you're going to be in the streets rioting, you're going to be in the streets creating anarchy, okay, fine. I get that. I can approve of that, because to me that makes sense. And I understand that this whole
going for anarchy, if you're literally trying to change the system and do a revolution, an actual revolution. But most of the people are just, I mean, you'll voice your opinion, but you're not gonna put your money where your mouth is and start a militia.
Exactly. So tell me how in God's green fucking earth here, by you sitting home and not voting, is you actually doing anything? Your protest vote means shit. Let's dump the privilege aside. I got called out for saying, we have privilege. You're a white male, blah, blah, blah. I've been called out hundreds and hundreds of times on this. So fine, I'll drop it. But you tell me what your protest vote's getting you. It's getting you jack shit because you're still sitting the fuck at home. You're still not doing a damn thing. And if you want to do something, then sit there and say, hey, where's the progressive candidate that wants to work outside of the democratic system? And I'm going to support it. And I'm going to be the one to go out and I'm going to find the funds to make that guy a multimillionaire, not him individually, but his campaign, a multimillionaire campaign. Where's that? Because when that happens, that's when change happens. But until we have that, you sitting out and voting because you say, oh, this is my candidate? Fuck you. How about that? Fuck you. And,
here's one.
That's just the edgelord masturbation right there.
Yeah, exactly. And
think about the Gary Johnson stuff. Do you remember in Michigan, Gary Johnson actually had enough votes that he guaranteed to be on? They guaranteed the Libertarian Party to actually be on the ballot. And how much have we heard that people were saying, "Wow, the Libertarian Party it's finally enough. It's viable. It could be the third party." What have you heard from them? What have you heard at
crickets
all from them? Crickets.
A whole lot of crickets.
They'll put someone up, and I don't know who it'll be. I haven't heard anything about it, but they'll put someone up that will be running on the Libertarian ticket, and there'll be a dumping ground for moderates who aren't happy. And the same thing with it'll probably be Jill Stein, because I'm pretty sure she's the only person in the Green Party, but that'll be a dumping ground as well. But like I don't know. I just every year or every 4 years you hear the same thing, even every 2 years, depending on whether or not you actually vote in the most, I would say the most important things, which is the your local and state representation, which is huge this year, that there is going to be a complete slam all over the Senate, but I haven't heard one hide nor hair of that, which I get it. The president is an important thing. It's really showy and flashy, the most powerful man or woman in the world. But let's face it, the Democrats slept through 2008, 2016, and they got gerrymandered into oblivion. And now we have basically a conservative judicial branch and a conservative, almost supermajority on the Supreme Court. So you can yell and scream as much as you want about president, but I'm seeing a whole lot more done by guys like Mitch McConnell and that kind of thing. So like, we'll see what happens in the party. This is important. I love the fact that everybody's involved in the presidential, but when people vote in the presidency for the presidency and then they disappear for 4 years, screw those people too.
Well, it reminds me of that thing that I had sent you guys the other day that I had come across. Did I send it to you guys? It was basically this whole, you're not necessarily voting for the Democrat candidate, you're also voting for the person who's going to replace RBG, the Secretary of Education, federal judges, the rule of law, saving national parks, letting kids out of cages, for fuck's sakes. Mm-hmm. And there's our explicit tag right there, because that's twice an hour.
Tanner beat it like 10 minutes ago.
I think I beat you.
No, that's why
I turned it on before we went live, man.
That's why I said it the second time. That makes it an R rating. Because that's a funny standard that they have. Yeah,
it's only in Canada. That's like the crazy thing, there.
But once you hit NC-17, that's when they won't let it go in.
But it's the reason why I'm more supportive of the whole vote blue no matter who, and it's really cringy to think that it might be Biden you'd have to vote for, because while we had fun when Trump took office, going Uncle Biden and all the Biden memes and all of that, at the end of the day, he's a very problematic candidate for the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, again, there's all of these other things. There's no longer replacing everything with conservatives. You will no longer be in fear that we're going to have a reincarnate of Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court, because that they're just chomping at the bit to overturn Roe v. Wade, and they're just looking for any opportunity to do it.
They have been at literally every single, what is it called when the Supreme Court comes together? Every session the Supreme Court has had, the entirety of the Trump presidency, there has been at least one abortion case that has been pushed hard, and they've usually been throwing them down. This most recent stuff they've been doing some serious conversations. NPR has been broadcasting the verbatim word, the debate that they've been having, the conversation. It's scary. Some of the stuff that they're talking about, like the fact that it's where it is, all the way up at the top, and there's like a conversation happening, not, hey, precedent says this, we're not going to go any further. And they are actually having legitimate conversations, constitutional conversations about the legitimacy of certain of all these little chipping away at Roe v. Wade and the other associated rulings that a lot of states have been putting out for not so much taking away the right for abortion, but restricting its access. Same thing with gerrymandering and voting, restricting its access so thoroughly that is effectively outlawed in the states that they're in. And that's the whole goal. They found a new way around it, and it's been working. And now the judicial branch has been slanted hard into the right, thanks to Mitch McConnell and just his unbelievably obscene but really effective strategic maneuvering. Just completely outmaneuvered the Democrats. Like it was like watching someone play chess against a checkers against a chess grandmaster. It's frustrating to watch them just lose every single time, no matter what they do. Like I don't know. It's just so that's kind of the whole point. It's like this entire we're seeing what's going to happen next week. So in 2 days, there will be Michigan, and then another week after that is Ohio. And I don't know how many states are running also in tandem between those two states, but I'm going to finally have my chance to vote. We obviously know who I'm voting for. I voted for Bernie last time. I'm voting for Bernie again. And in the general, I would and will vote for Biden if necessary, but it's just, it gets harder and harder every time to vote for the lesser of two evils, and watching the Democratic Party shift right a tiny bit every single time. So that if you look at the progressive vote now versus where it used to be, it's not exactly where you would think. It's like, in my opinion, where Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez are is where the Democratic Party should be. If you look at like the policies that used to be the thing that they were working for, when workers' rights and social welfare. But anyways, if we get to the election, we might all be dead because P is for pandemic, right?
P is for pandemic.
And we're going to stay away from politics this episode, right?
We were. Anyway, 22 minutes into the episode, we're going to shift a little bit to, what I did this weekend. This weekend, I took the family on vacation, and I thought it would be great to talk a little bit about what I learned while I was at the Chicago Aquarium.
Okay. Shoot away.
All right. So I spent a lot of time. We did a couple of things. We went to Legoland. So a little backstory.
I'm going. There's one in Cleveland. I'm going. It's
awesome.
I am rock hard with jealousy, guys.
All right, we're gonna keep moving past that. So my daughter. It's a little backstory here. My daughter decided that she didn't want a lot for her birthday, right? So she put on there 5 things on her list. That was it. Number 1 thing, trip to Disney World.
Oh yeah, no, that's
Number 2 thing,
second mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. Trip to Legoland. All right, good enough. That's probably doable. Except for I found out, by the way, there's Legoland amusement parks, not just Legoland Discovery Centers, which is what you're talking about, Hannah. And I will tell you, she was not disappointed. So even though I'm pretty sure she was looking for the amusement park one, she got the Discovery Center because I didn't know there was the other one until we got there. And I was like looking around for some coupons, which I'll send you, by the way. If you're going to go in the next couple of months, I'll send you the coupons. It's
cool.
Seriously, like I saved like $50, which is amazing.
Oh.
Amazing for that place, And then I'll warn you, once you get in there, it's a death trap. You're going to spend money. The only upside to the whole Legoland
transaction, everything.
No, they don't. But they have all these little workshops, and you can buy into the different things, and they give you a stamp book. If you like, for $5, you can add a stamp book on to collect your experience. And I was like, no, thank you. Not gonna do
everything's
that.
a la carte. It's very so. What we're gonna do is go through the website. It had all of the different layers and levels, and there's like an all access or whatever. I don't know exactly what we're gonna do, but we were looking at the different tiers of pricing. So
yeah,
it'll be cool.
I'll be honest, it is pretty fun. And you know, so anyway, so she had 3 other things on there and whatever. They were very low cost things. So I thought I'd be smart, right? And propose. And I can't remember if we told this story in the show or not, but I thought I'd be smart and be like, well, I'll tell you what, we'll go to Legoland, but that's all the gifts you get for the whole birthday. And she happily said yes. And I'm sitting here going, crap. This is going to cost me more money than it was to buy the gifts. And it did, in fairness. I mean, because we went and saw the Sheds Aquarium as well while we were in Chicago, which is really good because she loves seals. Like, that's her favorite thing in the whole wide world is seals. She owns more stuffed seals.
I know, those eyeball creepery ass things.
Yeah. She has more than that now. And when we got there in the gift shop, her present was a seal, a stuffed freaking seal. When she's got 17 of them.
I took a picture of one of them when I was there with my daughter, and I think I texted it to you because I was like, "Oh my, they're right here." That's just but yeah, no, that place is insane. We got photos of. I mean, it is so like most places you go to an aquarium, it's like, okay, cool. We've kind of gone through the whole exhibit. You can spend a whole day inside that aquarium. It is massive. It's the biggest one I've ever been to.
Yep. So we did. So anyway, so our trip was Legoland, right? You know, and then we went to the Woodfield or Woodland Mall. I don't know what it's called. That was right next door to it. And we did that. And we spent a little bit of money there, but it wasn't too much. They had Cheesecake Factory there. So that satisfied the majority of the kids and the wife.
I had that for the first time the other day. It was like everything is just cooked in butter.
It's good. You're right. It is. It's like, really good.
It's real. It's like if America had soul food, that was like the white version. You know what I mean? Like buttery meatloaf. Like that's, I don't know. Like it's good, but it's
all right. You're ruining it for me. But I'll be honest. I don't like sweets, so I don't care that much.
It's like super umami and like savory flavors. But like when you're eating it, it's just like this is so decadent. Like that's kind of what it was.
Is.
Like, the reason I always think of that is because I was at Cheesecake Factory. I think has the single highest caloric entree in the country.
It does. It's funny because my wife came out from it. Me and Nora went sat outside, and my wife comes out and she goes, "All right, I got some cheesecake." And I was like, "All right, well, I don't know what you spent. Don't know." But me and Nora didn't want cheesecake. She's like, "Well, I ordered 2 extra pieces," and I was like, "Did you just order a whole cake? Then you might as well just got a whole bloody cake." Well, everybody wants something different. I was like, but I bet it would be cheaper if you had a whole cake. And then you would have had more cheesecake.
I guarantee you they have a cake that is 1 slice of each, and then they put it all together in this like Frankenstein's monster.
I have no idea. I just know it was I know it was very costly. It tastes very good, but like it upsets. I have to be careful. It upsets my stomach a little bit. You know, like I'm the whiskey guy. Like I want, you know, bitter stuff, and you know it's not that. Anyway, so that's what we did on Friday, you know, on Saturday, and then Sunday. Today we went to the aquarium. So like we went. I got up this morning, got all the stuff packed up with the kids and the wife. We got everything packed up. We got in the car. We drove to Sheds Aquarium and we walked all day. And then after we walked all day, we came back home and then we're doing the podcast. But the funny thing here, right, is that it inspired me because there were some things that showed up in what we were looking into that made me want to say, hey, screw politics for tonight, even though we spent 28 minutes talking about them. Screw politics. So let's actually converse about something that is going to affect everybody. And so there's an article, and it's kind of funny because it kind of came up in the discussions. You know, they have coral reefs, right? And this is definitely a newer article, and I found this based on the conversations that they had at the aquarium. But essentially what they're saying is scientists are saying that we must save the Red Sea's coral reef, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're talking about what coral reefs are.
It's getting bleached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. It's terrible. We did a segment early on in the show about the Great Barrier Reef bleaching over in Australia.
Yeah.
Yes.
How much of that has been bleached by this point?
I don't know. As far as I know, most of it.
And
It was terrible at the time. That was years ago.
yeah. And the thing is that it's not even just the rising temperatures either. It's because of the acidification of the oceans that's also slowly killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yay,
Yeah.
carbon dioxide.
So this one's the one of just the Red Sea.
Yes, this is just the Red Sea, but just as you said there, buddy, it's the article is citing rapid ocean warming due to climate change, right?
Yeah.
And so I decided, screw it, let's do an episode on climate change again, which we did, I don't know, probably a month and a half ago, but this is a little different. And this related to what I was learning while we were at the museum. And the best thing, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to digress a little bit. The best thing about going to these museums is I don't have to worry about creationist shit. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Like when they go, this coral reef here is 500,000 years old, and you go, it just feels
Well,
good.
see, one thing you'll run into is there are a couple of there are exhibits and things. So there's one in Michigan up in I want to say it's in the UP towards the one of the long whatever the uppermost peninsula that sticks up at the top of the UP. Anyways, there's like a cliff point that you can go to that's at the very tip top, and it's dizzyingly high. And at the very top, they have like a bunch of explanations of the strata and the things that are in there. And it says like this event happened this however many millions of years ago, and some Michigan hillbilly went up there with his pocket knife and carved in. It's not that old, like just carved it right into the plaque. Just scratched out the age and the date and just like carved in like at the museums. There's more people around, so you can't quite do that. But I guarantee there's some dumb thing with some stupid person did in there somewhere. If you look close enough, you'll find it.
Oh, that's so infuriating.
It was. I took a picture of it. I still have it. It's in my Google photo Big Brother file somewhere. But
well then, that's so infuriating. That's like the natural history of things, and you're really short-sighting yourself when you believe in these conspiracy theories or let your belief system be polluted and shut you off from the real beauty of the world. And it's one of my greatest frustrations is like when people find out that I'm a skeptic or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, somebody just takes the fun out of everything. And it's like, no, hang on. No, it's not that I'm taking the fun out of everything. It's that there's a natural beauty. There is so much more interest in what you can see right here as opposed to making up some bullshit explanation for it. Like it drives my wife nuts because we'll watch magic acts, and I'll watch it because I want to try to figure it out. Not that I'm really good at it. I enjoy it, and because I know that there's more to it than just a sleight of hand, because they also are manipulating your neurological processes. Whereas with her, she likes to enjoy it, and I'm like, yeah, I enjoy it too. I just like to see how it's done. That's it. Yeah, almost. Yeah, but it's
I like Penn and Teller's Fool Us. That's a pretty cool show. They like break down like good and bad acts and stuff like that. But anyway, so back on the whole at the aquarium, essentially, you're getting a solid, healthy, non-biased, non-Fox News version of science in America.
Yeah. Yep. And they were talking about the rise of temperatures. And it's kind of funny because on the internet, it seems, especially my Facebook page, for Christ's sake, it seems like people want to say climate change doesn't exist. But I mean, these people at the aquarium are all talking about climate change. I mean, it wasn't like a non-discussion here, you know. And so
they don't like censor it and like talk quiet about it. They're like, it's getting hot in here.
No, they don't make that big of a thing about it. But yeah,
dude, it's usually pretty solid. I don't know. I remember it was like something like because of global warming, because of I mean, it gets
it is. And excuse me. And that's the thing. So this article I found, you know, that I was reading up on, you know, is talking about basically the corals of the North Sea or of the North Red Sea, excuse me. they are a constitute of one of the last reefs survived this century. And it's kind of funny because when I was walking through the exhibit, we got to the coral reefs, right? And of course I stopped. I'm stopping and I'm going, man, this would make a good segment. I think we talked about this before. And they actually had like a diagram, and I wish I had a picture of it, and I don't. But they had a picture where they showed like it was like this graph, and like they had a measurement scale, and on one side was one type of reef, and the other side was a different type. And they actually showed how many years it takes to build X amount of feet for these coral. So just based on that, you can walk into any of these oceans and go, oh, hey, that's 780 feet. That's X amount of millions of years old. And that's the best part about this whole thing. And that's what got me to say, hey, all right, we're going to find an article. We're going to look into this because I'm excited, by this. Yeah. And they're talking about how there is essentially an exceptionally broad perspective and expertise on the discussions of the value of the Red Sea's coral reef, right? And how it's being threatened. And we talked before about overfishing. We've talked before about pollution. But we need to get a lot more scientific research that goes into this, because that's the problem. Without this, what is the objective here, right? How do we get the universal world to go, holy crap, what do we do? And I don't know, I mean, Keith, you probably don't have a lot of coral reefs in Canada.
No, maybe they don't grow well in the snow.
That's so beautiful. I love
it. It's because because the variation in our temperatures, it just doesn't really provide a whole lot of room or a lot of sustenance for something that is more of a tropical life form. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of undersea locations throughout the entire Nova Scotia region where there's incredibly diverse and massive populations of small creatures. It may not be a reef, but it definitely serves something.
Yeah, not to say that it doesn't have its own biodiversity. It's just it's very, very different because of the climate and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the reasons why these reefs are really important, and one of the areas of expertise that people look into this and why it's difficult is because this stuff is so complex and there's so many variables that are happening here. So like the Great Barrier Reef and looking at this, the Red Sea Reef here, like these areas you can't go into them because it's essentially most of the stuff is like razor sharp, and if you bump it, it breaks, and thousands of years of damage. So like it's a really hands-off experience. But like the amount of stuff, the amounts of biodiversity and amounts of evolution that's happening on a constant flux of growth and failure and life and death, these reefs are really important in keeping that, because like the biodiversity in the ecosystem is kind of what we've been talking about. If you talk about the agricultural industry in the United States, it's 1, 2, 3 products that are massively overfarmed, and it to the detriment of just natural diversity in the environment. And the same kind of thing happens in the sea. If these reefs die, you don't have these areas that are just like these metropolitan hubs. Like I would say like a reef is like New York City. It's like a Beijing, a Hong Kong. Like these are places where like there's so much stuff going on that when we lose those things, you lose like kind of like a jump start or a spark, a thing that keeps the diversity of the ocean moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another thing that kind of as I was reading through this article here that stuck out is part of the reason why this one is so important is that apparently it's more resilient than the other reefs, it looks. So it just kind of seems like this might be kind of one that we really follow to kind of see how we can work to replenish and even enhance the other reefs, and see if there's any way that we could try to preserve them by using this. So use nature to kind of, fix our mistakes, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the idea here, right? Is we need full cooperation from the government, from multiple government. We need to create a collective of scientific knowledge where it can be shared throughout the regions.
This sounds like a new world order.
A little bit, yeah. And they need long-term monitoring of the threats, right? Because and that's the problem here is people just take this for granted. We take all these different things for granted, and we don't sit there and say, if I throw this cup on the thing. And that was the other, big thing here at the aquarium is they're saying, hey, do you recycle? And like some people were going, yeah. And then I'm sitting here going, this should be an unresounding scream throughout this thing. And maybe they're like me and I don't get into that type of stuff a lot, except for if I'm at a Bernie rally, then I kind of do. But other than that, I'm not really big into that. Or I guess if I'm wasted, then I might. And neither one of those things happened at the aquarium. But it was just kind of sad to say, because in Chicago, they wanted to charge us for plastic bags at the mall. They're like, hey, you want a bag to carry your stuff in? It's going to cost you. Mm-hmm. And at first I was angry. And then I was like, all right, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. They don't realize I'm going to recycle that bag. Nobody else will. I will recycle that bag. All these other people don't. So it's just creating different things. And I sat there and thought about it. I was like, hey, I just need to start bringing reusable bags with me if I go shopping. Why am I taking any of these people's bags, even though I will recycle them? If I start to force these plastic bag companies to make less and other people do the same thing, there we go. And that's all that's the large point of this article is we need larger cooperation and we need to get other governments and other citizens to understand what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're bang on the money there. The issue is that like these bags, they're so cheaply produced, they're so quick and easy to use. And really the average person is looking for something that's, requires, even a half a second of thought. It's just a quick, easy way you go. Working in a grocery store for, over a decade, those plastic bags, they were just quick and easy, just a quick, and you can throw things in there and whoop, and away you go. And you can get them by the 100, right? And they were like 2 cents a bag. And that's the problem, is that everybody's kind of looking at the economics of it instead of, the grave reality, which is we're kind of polluting and destroying our planet. And while the planet may live on, we might not. So it's not just, right now, maybe there's also a little bit of a future to think about.
There's one quick thing on the bag. This is just a simple thing. I could get the link or something in the future, but it's either Planet Money or Freakonomics. They went through it, and your argumentation on both of those points, they're trying to do the right thing. They pretty much looked at the numbers for what it takes to make the reusable bags, and they said that the amount of carbon dioxide and pollution created in making reusable bags and making paper bags is orders of magnitude more than using the plastic bags and just not throwing them in and especially if you reuse the plastic bags in like a garbage can, so you use them multiple times. But they said that you would have to use like the reusable bags thousands of times before you would hit the same amount of carbon footprint as you do on those little plastic bags. So like in the end, they looked at the numbers and they said that it's not, the plastic bags are not the biggest problem, as long as you do, like Chris said, is take them to the recycling plant or take them to at the grocery store where they take the recycling in. So if you do that, then plastic bags are really of no problem. It's just whether or not you want to get away from petroleum-based products and giving oil companies all that money. But like we use the reusable bags, the paper ones, or the reusables. But like in the end, it was a pretty cool thing that they said. Essentially, you have to use like a reusable bag thousands of times because of all the cotton and all that stuff in those bags. So it was crazy. It was actually exactly the opposite of what I expected. Random thought.
Fair enough. Well, as we move on to the next segment, when we're keeping in the theme of climate change, one of the things I thought of and wanted to discuss was coming back to our food waste and climate change segment we did, I think, a month and a half ago, where we talked about food waste, what it does for the environment, all those different things. And I found, I thought, hey, if I'm going to be negative, which probably happens more on this show than maybe it needs to. What if I look at a positive sighting of this, right? And in my Reddit research and different things like that, as I'm reading through all my different, threads, one of the things I came across was feeding the world without wrecking the planet is a possibility. And I sat there and thought, crap, that's what I should be doing. We should come back. Let's have another short discussion about this. It doesn't have to be 80 minutes long, but we could talk about how I criticize everybody and how they eat, and said, hey, we need to do a better job at reusing and getting too much food. And this all stems from me having to go to Texas and eat out, right?
Yeah.
And this weekend we went to Chicago and I got a little bit less of that. And it was kind of funny because, we ordered pizza the first night because the kids didn't want to go anywhere. They wanted to swim. We ordered pizza. It was a lot of money because of Chicago. But it's been like 3 meals for our family. I got pizza, breadsticks, and salad. And it's been 2.5 meals, we'll call it that way. Right? We got food the next day at another restaurant. That was a fast food restaurant. That was 1 meal. Then we went to dinner and we got, just what we needed. And then that's the idea here, right? Is we can feed the world without wrecking the planet. It is 100% possible to do this. And I wanted to do just a short, kind of follow up to what we talked about. I want to feel like John Oliver, right? A little bit. And say, hey, we're doing a follow up to what we discussed before. So this research study essentially says, if we look at the status of planet Earth and the influence of current cultural however you say that word, agricultural practices upon it.
I like agriculture too, man.
Agriculture.
There's a lot of reasons to worry, but also reasons for hope. If we see decisive actions very soon, right? So that's what they're saying is, hey, let's look at the opposite side of this.
Yeah, I really like this article. I just did a quick scan through to refresh my memory. And I like what they're talking about. Essentially, they're not talking about go vegan, everybody's got to be super green.
Yes.
Like they're talking about using a variety of things that exist currently as far as the agricultural, the economical and the ecosystem itself. It has a balance. And that's what they talk about in here is finding a nice balance. Because it says technically 10 billion people can be fed without compromising your system as long as you do it the right way. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's a big push. I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
You think we're gonna hit 10 billion people happily fed pretty soon, Tanner?
Don't tell me the recommendations are not specifically organic.
Oh no. The organic requirement isn't. I didn't see that anywhere on there, and nobody said the word keto because I would have lit the website on fire.
I don't know. You don't want to do keto, Hannah. I mean, I guess you get 40,000 steps a day supposedly in your environment, so you don't even need keto.
My record is 37,000, and that was because I was working on my house. But 34 was like crazy. On average, it's around 20.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts.
That's a pitter patter.
Let's get at her.
That's a skid-atter, pitter patter, skid-atter.
Pitter patter. Let's get at her.
Yeah, that doesn't fit, Hannah. You're derailing the show by trying to put Letter Kenny references in here that don't fit.
It's because he's a non-watcher.
Yeah. So here's the deal where pitter patter comes in. Hey Hannah, pitter patter, get to the point. That's where it comes in.
Okay.
Anyway, moving forward. Oh, sorry, I'm in the mood tonight. Yeah. So one of the recommendations. Jeez.
Come on, get the words out. You got the agricultural action going on.
There you go.
Pitter patter.
Pitter patter. There you go. That's a good application too. One of the discussions are some regions would need less food, right? So they talk about feeding people less, producing less, or getting rid of some of the food to other areas, right? They currently find that our agriculture in many regions is using too much water, land, and fertilizer, right? Mm-hmm. So production in these regions thus need to be brought in line to be environmentally sustainable. And that's the idea here is they look at these things and they say, okay, is it going too far? Are we putting too much resources into it? And this is actually, and this is a logistical thing for me, right? I'm sitting here going, hold on a second. That makes a lot of sense because in my company and things I do for a living, a lot of the organizations we partner with, we help them figure out how to strategize better so they're not importing too much and not producing too much in their facilities. And yes, I know I'm part of the problem with outsourcing. I get it. But at the exact same time, you have to maximize what's going to have the least environmental impact, A, and B, what's going to have the most sustainable impact when it comes to paying for your resources. And that's
also,
what they're
the other thing
is
is efficiency. Like your company needs to be. So if you maximize efficiency, a lot of times waste and those kinds of things do get turned down a little bit. So like if you're maximizing your efficiency, so you're not overloading one thing and wasting a whole bunch of it, that's going to be a good thing. And usually that will coincide with environmental stuff too. I mean, if you're maximizing and reducing waste, it's going to help a little bit.
Exactly. So that was one of the suggestions. The other suggestion that they talk about is changing the dietary functions. And as you said earlier, it's not going vegan. That's not what they're talking about. It's creating a sustainable mixture on your plate that will benefit you and make you more healthy. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, right? Because like I was telling, I can't remember if we had this conversation on the show or if it was an after show thing for the Patreons, but we were talking about essentially, this one restaurant I went to, and you got a half a chicken and you got 7 different types of sides, and they were unlimited, and you could not bring them home. You couldn't bring the sides home. But I'll tell you what, every one of the sides had lots of butter, lots of salt, lots of pepper. Pepper's not bad, but it had lots of both. Lots of fat. And you sit there and we talk about balance needs and what it takes to produce this. I mean, look, green beans could be boiled. Green beans could be sauteed. Green beans do not need to be sauteed in a half a pound of butter to the point where you pick it up and the butter falls off.
Yeah, that's bringing back that cheesecake stuff we were talking about.
Exactly.
While we were moving on to the next topic, I did a quick search. The pasta carbonara with chicken at Cheesecake Factory has 2,640 calories and 2,569 milligrams of sodium. As a basis of reference, the American Heart Association recommends that the average American consume no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. So pasta carbonara will kill you.
Can you imagine eating that every day?
Oh no, I can't.
My arteries are just cringing.
The diabetes would creep up on you pretty quick, and I imagine the other bodily functions that
poor thyroid.
Everything just bad. So quickly, there's a really cool connection to the first section that they were talking about. For doing less would be more. In Ohio, there's the toxic algae bloom. I don't know if you've heard about it. Mm-hmm. It's in Lake Erie, just north of Cleveland. There is this horrible bloom of toxic algae that is its natural output is just pure death for anything that comes through it. Like, you don't swim in Lake Erie for a variety of reasons. Things don't live there. In a bunch of cases, just like the one that was outside California, there's no oxygen in the water because of the algae bloom. This is a direct result of phosphorus runoff from farming, where we need to grow some stuff. We're not entirely certain how much phosphorus, so let's just dump as much as possible. All the extra will just run off. It's like taking I used to joke about it, GNC's Mega Men multivitamin. If you take that, it's like 5,000% of everything. So your body uses as much as it needs. And then you just piss laser beams. It's bright green. It's nuts. It's nuts. And so it's the same concept for modern agricultural farming, is that we're not certain exactly what's good, but if we overload it, it doesn't kill the plants. So just dump it on. Just dump it all over, and where it's not used will get washed off and run down into the water in the tributary system. If that's the case, you're poisoning the lake that everything runs out to. And in this case, if you look at the environmental impact that we're having here, like tourism's down, food and all of the things that happen with the lake are down. Like, there's a pile of negative effects that happen. And so if you look at this, like, oh, we got some corn, awesome, but the negative effects in the ecosystem and everything are massive. So evening this out. And this is one of the regulations and requirements they've had in the area, in the region. They are literally policing how much fertilizer they use on farms. And this should help reduce the toxic algae bloom. Also, it'll help. It won't hurt or cut any of the growth that they have from these from the crops that they're growing, because it was too much to begin with. And so we are legislating in conservative red Trump country here a way to basically not kill the environment. It's a realization when a few people use science and farmers use science, even though they vote against their best interests when it comes to voting for Donald Trump. And it does seem that they like to use science when it works for them, like kind of like a cherry picking thing here, or confirmation bias. But you know what? I'll take what I can get. That's kind of how I'm seeing this. I'll take what I can get. If they're going to do something and they don't realize that they're helping the environment and they're trying not to stop global warming, but they're doing it accidentally, that's fine with me. I'm okay with it.
Fair enough. Well, with that being said, that, I think, I think that's a valid discussion. I also posted the link to the actual research article. We're not going to go through that tonight. We hit pretty hard on it about a month ago. And I don't want to overwhelm people, but I think, now that when we talk about discussion change or viewpoint change and how do we change things, it's important to come back and say, this is how the scientific community is saying, hey, maybe we need to change it this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Michael Pollan says. He says, eat food.
Not too much. Mostly vegetables.
Mostly plants.
Paraphrasing, okay?
I know, you got to have the right, though. But, I mean, in all reality, those are the three from In Defense of Food and The Omnivore's Dilemma. Highly recommend. Everyone should read because they're amazing. And if you want to go all psychedelic, check out his book, How to Change Your Mind, because he takes shrooms and it's awesome.
What?
All right, we're going to move past that. We had that conversation. We'll have, that's a conversation we'll have for the Patreons. How about that?
That would be sweet. Maybe we'll do it while we're on shrooms. We can go to Colorado. I'm sure they're trying to legalize it, as far as I know.
Yeah, I thought they had actually
for medical, but I don't know about for recreational.
I mean,
anyway, while you keep trying to talk about doing illegal things on the show, we're going to move on to the last segment of the show.
Yeah,
P is for pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to talk about because everybody is having a meltdown about the coronavirus, right? And we're not talking about stopping drinking the Corona beers. Though I'll be honest, I think they taste disgusting, and I'll advocate you should stop drinking that beer, no matter which way it is.
I just find it's
disgusting.
It's a ridiculous thing that people are like, the coronavirus is out, so the Corona beer is all of a sudden going to be bad. Like, your correlation is just a weird place without any kind of causation. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know why that's a big deal for people. They're just like, oh.
And I agree. And that was the thing is, a buddy of mine about a month ago had a conversation about this, right? And he's like, it's not this big a thing. And I'm like, well, kind of it is. He's like, well, no, it's not because of this, this, and this. And I said, okay, well, hold on. Let's look at the research behind it. A, it's growing at a faster rate. B, it's spreading to a lot of these other countries. And C, the death toll is higher than the average flu, right? So when you put all those together and we talk about what is a pandemic versus an epidemic, it's a disease that spread across large region, again, multiple continents or worldwide, right? And it is something that is killing people at a higher rate than other diseases or viruses have in the past.
Yeah, it's an even elevated rate in the United States. So the diagnosis to death ratio is much higher in the United States. As far as I heard, it was somewhere around 5%. And there's a bunch of people that are talking about the reason that they believe that is that people in the United States were kind of like, I don't care. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. We're not really going to worry about it. Or they just don't have health care and they're not going to the doctor and there aren't any tests because Mike Pence said there's all kinds of tests out there, but we're not getting tested properly. So the number of people that are getting tested are already suspected, and those are confirming it. But there are a whole bunch of people that don't figure out they have it until they die from it. And so the United States is kind of behind the curve. These test kits that are coming out. Yeah, I know. Imagine the American healthcare system is behind the curve and unable to properly take care of things. No. Wow, who would have thought, right? Yeah, and then the people that are getting stuck with $3,000 cost for the test, they get a bill for $3,000. That's a big one too. So like, there's people
maybe they shouldn't get sick.
I don't know if I have it, but I'm not going to freaking get sick. I'm not even gonna, or they'll say I'm not going to go to the doctor. It's just a flu. I don't care. In another country where your healthcare is not an issue, you go and you get tested because I feel kind of sick, and for the global welfare, whatever. So in the United States, we have a higher death rate per diagnosis because we have all kinds of problems when it comes to diagnoses, test kits, and people just don't go in until it's incredibly bad because we're so afraid that we could go bankrupt if something bad happens with our healthcare, even if you have good healthcare. Even if you have like decent, like my company healthcare, it's healthcare, but it's expensive. Like I am genuinely surprised at how much everything costs. Having come off the ACA, where it was a pretty good deal as long as you're making under the amount, that threshold. We talked about that, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, how I got a $10,000 bill because I elevated my status in life, which is frustrating because Bernie Sanders would be like, well done, dude. Here's your healthcare plan, but keep, making more money. But the United States has really got some big problems here. So when we look at this growth, as far as I know, Italy just had something like a 140 or something like that increase, 140% increase in the number of people that died in a single day. It's like Italy is really growing. It's growing fast, and there's people dying at a faster and faster rate. China somehow has gotten the number to stop growing. My suspicion is that they have so much stronger of an authoritarian government that they're able to literally quarantine people without regard to health, wellness, or life in general. And so they can just kind of put a box around it and just not be humane.
If I ever get involved in politics, this could come back to bite me in the ass. But that is the advantage of an authoritarian state, is the ability to just completely cut and quarantine or.
Yeah, it's completely and totally
no questions asked, no discussions.
It's completely and totally utilitarian. They're going to sacrifice the one person on the train track instead of, the 10 people on the other track. I mean, in the Chinese government, we don't know if that's what they've done, but they've been able to really, really authoritarianly control this.
Wuhan,
we haven't seen the growth yet.
In Wuhan, where this virus originated, I was reading that it's basically a ghost town. Nobody's allowed to leave it for a while. One family member could leave once every 3 days to get groceries, and that was it. Yeah. And now it's just, from what I understand, anyways, it's just kind of a completely no.
Yeah, it's a complete military lockdown. So, but anyways, like having that in this kind of pandemic, this reason why the state of emergency exists in the government is that they can declare a state of emergency in the United States, and they can suspend habeas corpus and anything else where literally you would have to basically give the Constitution and the Bill of Rights some time. But if there's a big enough emergency, you can suspend those types of things. I don't know. I don't think that this would turn into that big of a deal. But if it continues to escalate and grow, we could be looking at a major issue. The people that are most in danger are the elderly, especially people with respiratory issues and a variety of compromised immune systems. That's like the big thing. So elderly and people with compromised immune systems, so HIV, AIDS, anybody who's got something like lupus, something where your immune system is compromised. These kinds of things are a big deal. And then the elderly who with their respiratory systems are a little bit more less able to deal with the attack, which would you hear like something like pneumonia kills elderly people on a regular basis. This is like super pneumonia as far as I've been told. And so these are the people. They've been saying that the young children have been getting this, and it has not been as bad. Obviously they're dying, but they're not dying at as high of a rate as older people are. So there's some hope for young people that they can kind of bang through it, but the rest of the world is trying to figure out a way to deal with this. And the U.S. is, I don't know, a late starter. We had the president of the United States telling the country that it's no big deal, it's awesome, because he was trying to stop the slide on Wall Street as opposed to trying to take care of the actual health and welfare of the citizens of the United States. But
exactly, and I posted about that,
right?
And I had all these Republicans on my page, bitching about it, telling me what the heck, the Trump administration's not, like doing that. And it's like, what are you talking about? Yes, they are. Oh, you're listening to the mainstream media. Like, what? Like, you could see Wall Street fell. I lost a lot of money in my stocks. I did a lot, like not a little bit.
401k is flat and dying and sad.
Yeah. And I'm. It's awful for me because I'm I really need that money to retire, and I just lost half my investment for the last year. You know,
I've been investing more. I've been listening to a whole bunch of people that say, like, in a downturn when it's really bad, like, put money in if you're young. Put money in because you can get more per dollar when the market is just like a total, a total bear market. Like if it's just like swiping down hard, throw some money in there if you have it. If it's not a big deal, if you have it set, don't worry about it. Hopefully it's not like an apocalypse or something. But if you can throw some money in when you're younger, when the market is on fire and people are losing their minds and people are getting fired all over Wall Street, that's the time to buy. It is.
Yeah. Nope, and I agree. But with that being said, we're not going to talk about Wall Street investments. We're going to talk about the pandemic, right? And it's kind of funny because there's a game called Pandemic, which I hate playing. It's a board game, and I hate this game. I lose every time because it spreads too fast. And it's like a joint team game where you can play like with your siblings or your friends or whatever, and so we'll play it. And
can you play as the virus?
No, you cannot. Not at all.
Well,
what's the computer game that you can name the virus something?
Plague Inc.
Is it Plague Inc? Okay, yeah. Because I always
I love that one.
They always name it something interesting, like your mom has taken over, killed 100% of the planet or whatever. Like that's always, I've seen that kind of stuff. And then there was a movie that came out on Netflix, like the day of like the announcement, and people are like, Netflix total conspiracy. They know the whole thing. It started it. They're trying to take over. It's like, really, that's what we're gonna do? Is Netflix is the new global world order?
Oh, I've got coworkers who are already saying no, it's the coronavirus was man-made and I've got proof of it. It's like, okay, let's see the proof. This is an extraordinary claim. Let's see your extraordinary evidence. No, Hitchens, no.
Yep.
I would. They've been people that have done like quick genetic analysis, and they see bits and pieces that are like, why is this here? I really want to see from a reputable source, because like the people that one guy that I read about this was saying there's a giant chunk in there that is not supposed to be there, and if that chunk is in there, it means that it has been edited using CRISPR and put in there, man-made, whatever. You know who this guy is? He's a anti-vaxxer.
Oh.
Yeah. I went through his stuff and I'm like clicking. I was like, man, this is really convenient. This guy has got like the right thing. He's totally saying that this is like, a man-made Wuhan Chinese super bug thing. And I dug through it and I looked through, what's his list of accreditations or his published list, just anti-vax across the board. And then I found out he's like one of the top guys that does speaking for it. And I was like, I am so glad I spent 5 minutes looking into this guy's history before I shared his garbage. Like every once in a while, it reminds you why you don't click the share button without clicking around for a minute. And that was a great example. And this pandemic stuff, this coronavirus stuff, there's a ton of really bad information out there. The government has been saying that we really need to clamp down on some of this scary stuff. The Baker guy, the televangelist Baker.
Jim Baker.
Yeah, they said
Baker buckets.
He said that the government literally told him to cease and desist selling a silver water serum potion thing that he says will cure the coronavirus. Like, no, you got to stop. Like, if Mike Pence is like, listen, bro. If Mike Pence is like, listen, bro, something's up. You need to chill your roll. That's so bad.
Yeah, it's a bad day for you when Mike Pence is, looking better than you do. Like that's just a sad day. Yeah. Ooh, and now we get to the cheery part of the show.
Yeah. So
let's kill some cats, Bri.
Yeah. Hey. So when we talk about pandemics, I thought it would be good to do a quick review of what has happened through history first, right? So like, this is not the first time this has happened. This is not the first time in modern history this has happened. And I
like
thought
that
it would
picture real quick. They're all like, why? And there's like Jesus up on top. And he's like, this is what I have ordained.
All right. I missed that. Fair enough. That's actually really good. I hope you make that the image of the show tonight. So,
No, it's very similar to that though.
but that's fair. I missed that. Honestly, I missed that the first time I watched this. So they talk about the different plagues, right? So there's a plague of Justinian in 541 AD.
Justinian the First.
Justinian works for me.
Who ruled the Byzantine Empire?
And
He must be the brother of Constantine.
he had the bubonic plague. Is that how you say that?
Yes.
Bubonic plague
Sure.
or bubonic? I like bubonic
Bubonic.
better.
You're making my ears hurt.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't help it. The Justinian bubonic plague.
The bubonic plague.
This
Bubonic.
is why I drink.
I love
This is not why you drink. You drink because you like it. Don't lie. You're Canadian. Easy.
You drink
Having a drinking problem
You
means I
drink
am in
because
denial.
socialists require it.
Then why aren't more people in my province socialist? The way
Anyway.
my province like.
So yeah. Anyways, the bubonic plague.
Yes.
Happened back then, and they called it the Justinian plague for whatever reason. And so there's that, right? So that's one of them. Then of course we had the Black Death, right? Very glad I did not live through that time.
Yeah.
Can we mention
all.
like death counts?
Sure, it's a lot harder in this one.
The
They
first
said
one, yeah.
half the world died,
That's a lot of the world, man.
but
That's
the
like
question becomes: is,
50%.
But they also thought
They
the
don't
world
know,
ended at like the other end of the European
Yeah.
continent. They were like, it's the end of the world. So
yeah, nobody
30
cares except for
30
white
million
males here. It's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So 30 to 50 in the first one, and what was it, 25 in the Black Death?
This one was 20.
Amateur.
Again, they don't have. They say they could have.
30 to
They
50.
don't know.
That's the estimate. Yeah.
This one is 25 million.
I mean, it could be for the best, anyways. Like maybe reduce humanity's carbon footprint for a little while.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's Earth trying to reset some stuff. Listen, guys, we gotta chill.
Well, it's either that or Keanu Reeves comes down and he's like, "Guys, no."
One of my favorite things about the bubonic plague and the Black Death in Europe is that there was a religious fanaticism with cats, where they essentially thought cats were like the tools of witches, and they killed all the cats. They killed them all, and then
That made it worse.
The rats were like, "Hey, we got all these ticks that are giving us the bubonic plague. We're gonna go bite people because we're not getting killed by cats."
Hey, we don't have a predator.
But anywho, so after the bubonic plague, the Black Death, there was
smallpox.
Hey,
Oh,
that's
I love
back.
blankets.
I love it when the greatest hits return. That's what we got going on right now, right? No, that's measles.
I don't think
that's
it's
coming
returned
back.
yet.
Yeah, it's measles. Measles is coming back. Not smallpox. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, smallpox killed 20 million. They're saying
Close to 90% of the population in the Americas.
Dios mío.
And I don't know. This is kind of like an earlier example of like biological warfare, because they without smallpox, would colonization have been as easy for European settlers?
Yeah.
Because they use smallpox to reduce the numbers of the indigenous people, right?
I remember seeing that, and I also
Smallpox
remember
blanket.
seeing some reputations of it, but like I'm not 100% certain on now. But yeah, like just the Americas were definitely inundated with all kinds of diseases and pathogens that the natives were not ready for, and so obviously their immune systems weren't ready to deal with that. That's probably a big chunk, but like, holy crap, 90% of the Americas, that's a big one. So that was that. I would call that a plague. The question is whether or not, so like, we're looking at, the definition was the plague was essentially, we're looking at a region, but beyond so it was, what was it? The pandemic is it exo regional, like when
It's more than one region, technically.
Yeah, pandemic is multiple regions.
Pan is we all come together, right?
Mhm.
We do our thing together. We don't care if
Large
it's
scale.
male or female or transgender. We do our thing together.
Yay, pansexual. Wait, we're not talking about that.
Yeah. So then cholera and all kinds of stuff. That's actually pretty common nowadays.
Cholera's next, right? But this was back in the 1800s. So again, this is back before we had a whole bunch of reasons or abilities to cure people.
Huh.
Mhm.
But one of the names they mentioned in this British physician named John Snow, and I can hear in the background Jen screaming, "Oh my god!"
Oh my god.
I know Jon Snow's pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
like that.
So
I'll take
But,
your
yeah.
word for it.
I know that's because you're a loser who doesn't watch BoJack or Game of Thrones. So moving on. After that one, we have the Spanish flu or the H1N1, right?
This one was interesting because Trump recently said that he didn't know people died from the Spanish flu, but that's what killed his grandfather.
We're going to move past that because Republicans would just turn the show off right now going, you guys are fake news. We're not having this conversation.
Fake news.
But yeah, so Spanish flu, H1N1, Hong Kong flu.
Yep. H3N2.
Well,
Y'all
let's-
get the point. I mean, we could go through this.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about like the Spanish flu, and I just want to bring this up, is that when it did hit, this was one of the this was during a time when we were seeing as much mass travel, especially because it was right at the tail end of World War I. So you had a lot of troop movements.
Mhm.
So there was no protocols for it in place, right? So that one's kind of interesting because just reading that one, that pandemic, they do believe was responsible for killing about 50 million people,
Ooh.
infecting 500 million. So that's a 10% mortality rate. That's pretty impressive. Not necessarily in a good way, but that's significant. I think that's a better way to put it then.
Yeah. Well, then, basically looking at all of these types of things, like what you're seeing is, vast spreading, quick spreading, and humanity basically taking a minute saying, holy crap, we need to figure out how to deal with this. You know what I mean? Like there's a buffer period, and then with the inventiveness of the human spirit and human cognition, the mind itself, it's able to overcome this by using science and technology. At no point in any of these outbreaks, in any of these situations, in this entire list, was prayer listed as one of the main causes of helping us get through that problem. Like it's always been scientific and inventiveness and innovation and all of those kinds of things. And right now, I guarantee you, someone who is a young Earth creationist they're running to make sure that they have the proper HEPA filters in their hospitals, and to make sure that they have good antibacterials and antivirals that would be potentially helping this. Like all of that scientific and knowledge and stuff that's generating, like that's all the stuff that help deal with all of these things. Like this is the stuff that it proves the case that developing and investing in this and that kind of technology is what's necessary. And the United States, we love to say that we do invest this kind of stuff, but it seems like we're a little bit behind the curve as far as rolling out all of the precautionary measures. I mean, SARS, I remember, was a great example of like that's essentially what we have right now is a derivative of SARS, or at least an evolution of SARS, that the acute respiratory issue. So serious acute respiratory syndrome.
Exactly. So then we have to talk about where do these come? Where do some of these specific things come? Because I think the big question here, right? When we talk about this, is we have to be very careful in what we say because of course, evolution could create a new virus that takes humanity out. I mean, look at The Stand. It's kind of funny because guess who just downloaded The Stand?
You.
Me. Yep, me. I did.
Nailed it.
And my buddy. He did the same thing too, and so like it's kind of a toss up between Thrawn and The Stand and my NPR podcast right now. But still, I got The Stand on standby, and I'm sitting here thinking, Super Flu, good book, makes sense. Stephen King called this shit, like 40 years ago.
Yeah,
but we want to talk about where these come from because it was kind of funny. My wife pointed this out to me. She goes, "Well, do you know where some of these come from and why some of these happen in remote regions versus maybe America?" And I thought it was very interesting. So I did a little bit of research this weekend, when everybody was sleeping and I was not able to sleep, and I thought it was kind of interesting to talk about where do they come from. So I'll let the two of you estimate where you feel that these viruses come from first?
Well, I might have a little bit of an advantage. So if Hannah wants to speculate, I'll let him go first.
Well, from my basic understanding, a lot of these kinds of things that they're usually blamed on animal to human transmission. That's usually where people go with right out of the gate. I know that this coronavirus has always been connected, or the viruses that have been connected to this particular genome have been associated with bats. But that's as far as I've gotten into in the background.
Yeah, it's like viruses like these. Like there's always some sort of a pool in the animal kingdom. And then just by fluke happenstance one day, some of you might refer to it as a coincidence, it just jumps from one species into humans. And then because it's unfamiliar to our immune systems and we can spread it all around really easily, all of a sudden it spreads. With this one, I do believe it that you were right there, that it was the bats in the area where the local pool of this particular virus. But
they are. But the question becomes: is how do we transmit it? Is it because they bite you? You know, is that why, or is it because people are eating them and they're eating things that they shouldn't be eating? You know, on a normal.
Or if they're around excrement or any of that other kind of stuff. Like bring back to Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, right? Guano. But there's the variety of ways that these kinds of things can be connected when it comes to like the Ebola virus. Is there's just dead creatures, dead things that's where that spreads. So like there's all kinds of different ways. So like each one kind of has its own way of spreading around.
But the main common thing here, right, is they infect a different animal, and during that they replicate, the mutation arises, and then they promote infection. So for example, if a bat bit a pig again, right, you're going to get the transmission of a virus. It evolves or adapts to that animal, and then we kill it, we slaughter it, we eat it.
Yeah.
And that's the idea here. The other idea was that.
And it's in the food chain.
Yeah. The other idea here is that people are eating some of these lower level animals to some extent, therefore taking some of that virus in, and then it kind of takes over and it mutates and adapts, and it's just a more aggressive version of it. So those are the two different theories that are going around between the two. And that's why I wanted to talk about that, because I think that's interesting, right? Because when we talk about the last segment, we talk about, environmental food waste. We talk about what happens in America and what the percentage is. And I'm not even going to say it because it angers me what we throw away every day.
Yeah.
And if we were smarter about our food and we were able to help other countries, they wouldn't have to eat bats, for Christ's sake, or snakes. People eat snakes. That's insane to me. I'll never eat a snake.
Meat's meat.
Do it.
In the end, if it's healthy, whatever.
But it's obviously not healthy, and that's the problem here. Is that we're not eating all of these domesticated style animals, right? People eat things in the wild, and the difference is certain animals or certain things have a higher contingency to have these types of viruses, and that's what's happening, and that's how it's spreading. So these animals are either biting other animals and infecting them, or they're eating these lower level animals that we would normally eat when you have access to good food. So if we're throwing 40% of our food away, why can't we figure out how to maintain some of that in another country and give them this food so they no longer have to throw it away?
Well, that's a GMO, Hannah, and that's another topic. Another thing that this was saying was there was a live animal market.
Yeah.
So basically, in such close proximity to all these critters, various pathogens, I don't know, statistically speaking, like it's bound to happen that sooner or later something is going to transmit. And one day, one of those things that transmits could be something like a coronavirus, which apparently they're very well known to come from pangolins, which I was finding, which is basically, just think like a version of an armadillo, I guess. They're really cute.
Yeah, they're
pretty cool looking little thing.
Yeah, they got like a pointy nose on them. Anyways, like the idea is, so we actually brought it out earlier, is like the authoritarian regime control. So like bringing those kinds of things lightly into some of these areas live animal markets and stuff like that. So you think of the FDA and the stuff that we deal with in the United States, and then obviously everybody in more of an industrialized nation has like a version of that. A lot of these types of things where you see or animal to human transmissions, you're looking at areas that don't have the kind of regulations and the science backed controls that are working in that type of thing. And it's like there's a lot of bohemian stuff that people love to go to these kinds of countries to see. Well, it's just a more natural market. It's completely ad hoc and whatever. But like also there is some benefit to having regulation and control and those kinds of health regulations and stuff. Those are important things too. So like once again, finding like a blend and trying to raise the overall quality of life for people in countries where they are still kind of starting to get to what we understand as the modern understanding of disease and microbacterial and virus and all that kind of stuff. Like these types of things, like growing certain areas of the rest of the country to kind of bring them into the modern world could help prevent some of these things when we look at, global assistance and helping stuff out. Like if you think about like giving money to increase the quality of the food of the poorest countries in the world, those areas could potentially stave off some of the growth of some of these super bugs or whatever that are eventually going to find their way to us if we just completely let them be totally free. And one of the thoughts that I was just thinking of is that if we kind of work to bring everybody to a quality standard of life, a certain level, the idea of increasing minimum wage in the United States, but let's say getting people in other countries to the point where food is not an insecurity, it's something that's a relative, it's a relative stability to the point where you can kind of have a job and just kind of worry about life and making money, where that you're not eating the cheapest, creepiest thing on the market because that's all you can afford at the time or whatever. Like all of those kinds of things, there's a huge global sociological tie-in to this kind of situation. And it's just how deep you want to go down on that. Like I've been listening and thinking about some of that kind of stuff as time has gone on, just like the different countries or whatever that you hear people visit and like, oh, it was so cool. Like the market, they had like fish and animals and they cut their heads off or whatever. But like you would hear the FDA and like the people that are in regulations would just be losing their minds over some of that kind of stuff. It's like, there's absolutely no cleanliness and no hand washing, no, anti spread of anything happening in there. So like trying to find something along those lines to kind of prevent the growth and spread of these kinds of things. A little bit of that could be from stronger governments and maybe a global coalition of like health and wellness. If the UN had some kind of outreach that would maybe grow the quality of life when it comes to food and stuff like that and born pathogens, that would be pretty cool. But of course, that's just coming from a guy who votes for socialists whenever they whenever they come anywhere near the American system.
Fair enough. Well, as we wrap the show up tonight, we want to do our usual quick saves. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with Hannah.
I have mine. It's hard to describe. It's a thing called a theremin, and I believe I'm saying it correctly. It's an electronic musical instrument controlled by physical movements. It's not, you don't actually physically contact it. It's named after its inventor, Leon Theremin. He patented it in 1928. But it's got a horizontal loop of metal and a vertical like post or pole, and basically what happens is when you move your hand towards the loop, it increases the volume, so the closer you are the louder it gets, or vice versa. And then there is some amplification and everything that's done for the vertical pole. And there was a couple of guys that were doing like DJ double dubs and connections and stuff like that, and like they were just like, this guy perfected the theremin. And there's a woman who I included in the link, and she is considered the absolute super. Nobody, I haven't seen anybody that does anything better than her. Her name is Carolina Eyck, Eyck, and it's just haunting how moving your hands over the top of a metallic object can make music of this type, and it's electromagnetic pulses, connections, whatever there's going on in this thing. It's really cool. I thought it was awesome. But the other, just a real short end of the other thing that brought to mind with the conversation here is the end of Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death, when it says, "And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and by one dropped the revelers in blood dewed halls of the revel. They died each in despairing posture of his fall. And the life and ebony clock went out, the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held in it illimitable dominion over all." Hopefully we don't hit that hardcore of an ending with the coronavirus, but I figured maybe listening to some interesting music would perk everybody's, I guess. It's weird. It's just a weird thing, so I thought maybe you guys would like it.
Fair enough. Buddy, what's yours?
All right. So I've provided a website. It's biolane.com, BIOLAYNE. This is somebody I found on Instagram. As it's been mentioned before, I am very interested in fitness. I was pursuing a career in that field for a while there. And one of the biggest things that I found in that industry is that there's so much woo. There's so many just trends that are just thrown out. Like I'm sure we've all heard, the keto, the paleo, and the Mesozoic, and all of those other types of diets and whatever. And they're all fad diets. And I've one of the reasons why I really stuck to him is he's got a PhD in nutrition science, and he posts a lot of corrections to common misconceptions. He himself is he's very successful in bodybuilding, that type of thing. I'm more of a powerlifter than a bodybuilder, but whatever. I can still appreciate good quality science, and that's what he tries to purport, is that he dispels science. He actually goes through articles, breaks down the findings, what's been uncovered, and he spends a lot of time actually calling out really, really shitty science. Every once in a while on his Instagram, which is BioLane, he will share a post from somebody he's criticizing and say, "Look, guys, this is this," and then he'll break down everything that's wrong with it. He's fantastic. He's insanely intelligent. He's very much an asshole, like us. So
Like
yeah, if you like the snark, for sure. But he does a lot of presentation of good quality science in the field of nutrition, because as I'm sure anybody who's tried to look into nutrition knows, there's so much bullshit out there, and it is so hard to parse, especially if you haven't spent years trying to find it. Like just a little bit of knowledge can be so damaging, because you'll think, oh yeah, no, this totally makes sense, and then you read, and then you actually follow the science and you find 10 reasons why that doesn't quite add up, and it's very overdue for that type of industry, and for anybody who's looking to improve their health and nutrition, or who wants to work on their nutrition for athletic pursuits or overall lifestyle, that type of thing.
Because I'm fat.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got a couple of books that he's put out there too. Like he's got the reverse dieting book out there, so a lot of solid information, and just somebody that I would recommend looking at if you're looking to do a little bit of dispelling of nutrition myths and shitty science in that field.
Fair enough. Well, so for mine for this week is I was looking at a couple of different things, and the big thing that came up was daylight savings time, right? Daylight savings time is a big thing. Everybody has it, like we have the time change when we move to different regions, but daylight savings time only affects certain regions, right? And so NPR had this article that says it's that debate time again, and I thought, ooh, it's a debate with the Democrats, but no, that's not the debate. The debate is over whether daylight savings time should be a big thing or not. And, my buddy texted me literally last night at, I think it was 1:23, which was, again, an hour later because of daylight savings time. I was still awake. And he's like, this is the most bullshit thing we have to do. 1 hour forward for no reason. Come on, guys. This is ridiculous. This is fucking embarrassing. That's what he was saying. And I agree. So I think that it deserves a relook at, because to me, the daylight savings time thing, it was for the farmers. Do the farmers still need it? if they don't, why are we doing it? Why can't we just not have our life normal?
There are 34 states considering legislation to make it permanent right now.
I've got an idea. Why don't we find the middle ground? So right now that we've jumped forward an hour, we'll roll back half an hour, and then that's it. No more daylight savings. Happy medium. Boom. Solved the problem.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think it's a valid point, and maybe a slam dunk home. There you go. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I am very anti-daylight savings time because I don't like it screwing with my sleep schedule. But I also travel for a living, and I have all sorts of sleep schedule issues anyway from moving time zones. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on another Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode. Probably a little bit more focused on the Michigan results. Not 100%. And we'll be back with another hard-hitting Canadian segment from Buddy.
Hey, guys.
So,
hello.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and have another amazing week.